So on behalf of Lab, Flower, which is the Festival of Latin American Women in Art, and Cine Latino, our co-hosts for tonight's event, I can say that we're really excited to speak with Maite and showcase some of her work to our audience. Maite's films focus on everyday stories and characters through intimate portraits. And this particular filmmaking style has made her an important voice in the current Latin American documentary world. In 2011, her first noted feature film, The Lifeguard, premiered at IDFA, and her second feature, Tea Time, won several awards at international film festivals. So her latest feature film, The Mole Agent, some of you may have seen via Dogworth's watch at home live streaming platform, or perhaps via your local cinema. And it's Chile's official contender for this year's Oscars. So congratulations for that and welcome, Maite.
Thank you.
We're really happy to have you here. And just to let everyone know, Maite will be in conversation with Lab's film editor, Caroline Pelican, who is herself a filmmaker and the director of Cine Latino, which is a film festival series that promotes the work of independent Latin American filmmakers. She's also the founder of Empoderarte, which is an organization running film workshops for women from disadvantaged regions of Peru. You can learn more about that on Lab's website if you're interested. So after the interview, we'll have about 20 minutes of audience questions. So if there's anything you want to ask Maite at any time during the conversation, just comment your question in the comment section on this live video on Facebook, and we'll make sure to get those over to Maite. So I'll hand over to Caroline.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I'm very excited to be here tonight. Maite is an inspiring voice, especially for Latina documentary filmmakers like myself. As you said, I'm going to kick off the conversation with Maite, but please feel free to share any comments and questions starting now in the Facebook chat. So Maite, The Mole Agent is your fourth feature film. I really hope that everyone had a chance to watch it. You can find the streaming link or several streaming links under themoleagent.co.uk. But for the ones who haven't seen the film, can you briefly explain what the film is about?
Yeah, the film is about detective that have a private agency that is hired by a client to research the retirement home where her mothers live, but the detective cannot make the research by his own. He meets a mole agent, and the film starts with the scene that he is trying to find a mole agent for 85 years old, and that is how Sergio appears. It's a man that he's a widower, and he's going to work for his first time as a mole agent. He's 85, and he's the worst spy in the world, but he's the more tender and touching person, and he brings the story to another place.
I mentioned it, The Mole Agent is feature film number 4. And I promise everyone, this is my longest comment that will lead to a question, but I really want people to understand your filmmaking journey. So let's go back a little bit to your previous films and characters. You've done The Lifeguard, El Salvavidas, which features the very compelling character of Mauricio, a lifeguard who doesn't want to get into the water and risk his life because he believes that a good lifeguard should rather apply preventive measures to stop people from drowning and going into the water in the first place, which is a really, really funny punchline if you think about people on the beach who want to get in the water, maybe risk something in the water and don't want other people to tell them what to do or not. And then you have La Once, Tea Time. You follow a really, really gorgeous group of elderly Chilean women who have been meeting up once a month for tea for over 60 years. And even though there is a lot of laughter, it's very intimate and sometimes very serious discussion on womanhood, and especially womanhood in a very conservative Chilean society. So these women come from very different socioeconomic backgrounds. They had different lives, and they have different opinions on some themes. And then the third film is about people with Down syndrome in Los Niños, or the grown-ups, which includes a relationship between two people who want to get married, a young man who seeks financial independence, and just people with Down syndrome actually finding their voice and stand in society. So leading now to my question, you're filming all these very, very intimate, almost fragile moments of characters, and often give voice to people who seem to be invisible to society. And if you ask those characters, I think most of them will say that they are not so special, or that they are not really, that they're normal people, just normal people, and they're not doing something, even though they're very, very intriguing. So the first question is, how do you find these characters and what attracts you to their stories? And the second, did you, in your past characters, was there anything that helped you maybe work with Sergio or help you with the filming of The Mole Agent?
Yeah, I think that I take your last one first. I think that in some way you learn how to make relationships with character and how to enter to micro worlds to shoot intimate portraits. And I think that, of course, that all the previous characters help you to reach the new characters. Understanding that for me, filmmaking, it's a way to know new people and to live new experience. So for me, they are part of life. So it's not only to shoot that characters, it's to share many years and many months, like living with them. So in some way, it's like how to build relationships with your main characters. And I don't know if it's something specifically that I learned for the previous ones that help me now. I think that it's a way to shoot, that it's a crew that we have been working together for 10 years. So we have a way to shoot the films that, of course, that we have been learning. And in The Mole Agent, everything was more risky in some sense, in that sense, because it was a completely new experience of what we were used in the mood that we entered to that place. But of course that we have the experience of how treat old people in shooting, how shoot people with dementia, for example. Like we already passed for that in the previous films, yes. And the first one was about what do I find in them?
Yeah, how do you find these characters and what attracts you?
I spend a lot of time looking for the characters. I think, like, I always start from a topic, and that topic make me go to research until I find the character that better represent the topic that I want to shoot. For example, in The Lifeguard, for me was an idea about a lifeguard in a beach in a summer in Chile where people don't want rules, and it was a police in the beach, and what happened with that rules, because in Chile nobody take care about the rules. So I interview like 300 lifeguards until I find Mauricio, that was the main character, and he was the best for me because he was a lifeguard that was afraid of water, but he said that doesn't care because he has to prevent. So yeah, it's lucky, but at the same time, it's a lot of research until you find the character that represent the society that you want to represent. Like they are intimate worlds, but are worlds that are speaking you about your society, about your idiosyncratic, how do I say? So it's cultural also, but for that it's like a lot of searching until you find how to represent your world in a closed space or in an intimate portrait. Yeah.
I understand that you wanted to make quite a different film when you first started with The Mole Agent. Your focus was rather on the private detective or private detective agencies. Well, you have Romulo, who is the other lead character in your film. But when, or better said, how did Sergio, a very unusual spy, as you mentioned, came into play? So when did you know the story is rather about him?
Yeah, the story started for a completely different, or not different, but it was more focused on the private detective world in the agencies and in the malls. So when I find the case of the retirement home, I thought, okay, this is the one that I wanted to shoot. But for me, it was completely focused on the research and on the client. And we were going to work with a mall that Romulo usually worked with, but a couple of weeks before he broke his hip before start shooting. So Romulo needs a new one, and he put an ad in the newspaper, and that is how the film started. But it was completely a lucky situation for me because I didn't want to search for Sergio. Sergio appears by himself because of the ad, and probably the previous experience trained my eye to see him and to say like, okay, he's a super good character, because in the first moment I feel that he was spontaneous, honest, he was with the camera, he was funny, he was like super quick and connected. So I begged to Romulo to hire Sergio for this mission. And as I construct before a relationship with the detective, because I work with him as his assistant to make the research, I can give my opinion in that moment. I was not only the filmmaker that wanted to make a film, I was working there for a while, yeah.
So let's talk about Sergio, the wonderful, charming, elderly main character of your film. I just wanted to, I mean, I guess everyone who's watched it, we all just wanted to hug him and just be with him because he's so kind and so charming. So he came to the film you just mentioned, answering to a job advert of Romulo, the private detectives. And then he receives the information, what the job is about, that he should infiltrate this elderly care home, investigate a possible elderly abuse. So you just mentioned it, Sergio didn't sign up for the film, for your film. He came for a job. So how is it like to work with him and explain to him maybe your filmmaking procedure, the filmmaking process, that you wanted to make a film about him?
Yeah, to all the people that arrives to the interview, we say that it's a job offer that it's going to be shooted. So we also ask if they wanted to be shooted. And we explained to Sergio that we are going to make a documentary for the mission, but for him, he was not there for the documentary. He was there because he was making a job. So his real commitment was not with me, was with the detective. Even if they have conflicts, at the end, he was his boss. So in that sense, I have a different relationship with him than with my previous characters because, yeah, we have a super good relationship, but I never give an instruction to Romulo, to Sergio inside the shooting, because the instructions he received from Romulo, and if I direct him during the shootings, everybody was going to realize that we know each other from before, and we have to act that we don't know each other inside the retirement home. So it was a different relationship between director and character, because he was my main character, but I have to act that he was another character of the retirement home as all the other ones. So yeah, it was like a special kind of relationship in that sense.
So he had to make up and hide. So some real spy stuff going on there. Was there ever a point that Sergio wanted to give up, that he wanted to leave the film because he didn't need to be there?
Yeah, the second day of, okay, we shoot all the training first in the office, and he was super happy. And then we stop, and I enter before to shoot inside the retirement home, like saying to the owners that we wanted to make a film about old age. So when Sergio entered to the retirement home, we were already there shooting. So when he entered, and even if he had the instructions of what he has to do, I think that he never thought what was really to live isolated inside a retirement home. So the third day of being there, he wanted to go back and he wanted to quit. And for us it was terrible because I cannot shoot that, because at that first day I was not focused on him because I have to act that I don't know him from before. But he was only calling to her daughter because he wanted to go back home. And her daughter and Romulo convinced him to stay, but it was super shocking to him because he always say, like, I thought that I will become another woman with dementia on that place, and I was super afraid of that. Yeah.
You just mentioned something really, really important, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about your vision as a filmmaker, especially documentary filmmaker. So you talk about creating this false, or recreating almost this false environment, which at the same time is a real environment, because this elderly care home really exists. The staff and its residents, very, very beautiful characters as well, they exist. Their stories are real. Sergio is real. And I think it's really funny that people seem to have almost a problem to describe your film. Like, it's a genre mixing film, it's a spy movie, it's a drama, it's a portrait film, it's a documentary. So what is it? Maybe can you describe a little bit more about your filmmaking vision, especially regarding the concept of documentary? What is documentary? What should documentary do?
For me, documentary, and in this case, like, documentaries are documentaries because the story is real, the characters are real, and everything that is happening, it's real. Like here, of course, that there is construction in the style, like with reference to film noir and to spy and detective films, and we're constructed that in the camera, in the lights, and in the lenses that we use, but everything that's happening there, it's real. But we, in some way, it's like to play jazz. Like, we start with a map, but then you have to go there, and I don't have the control in that sense. And we shoot for 100 days, so we are waiting there until the things that we are expecting happen. And for example, there is a scene of one of the characters that are stealing things inside the retirement home. And a lot of people ask me, like, how we shoot that scene that we know that in the perfect shot that she was stealing. And before that we shot that, we spent like 1.5 months shooting there. And before that, the detective asked to research the stealing, I already knew that the one that stole was Marta, because I was living there and I realized that. So I knew how to shoot it because I saw her all days. So we are prepared to shoot the scenes because we are there all the time. So, and there are days that we never shoot and days that we shoot a lot. Like, it's completely depend of what is happening, but you learn how to follow the people because you are really observing all day that place, and you control that place because you really know it deeply.
Did you, or when did you reveal to the especially staff of the elderly care home what the documentary is actually about?
We revealed it when the film was finished, and was super difficult for me because, yeah, we enter with a big little lie, like saying to them that we want to make a film about retirement home and everything that is happening there. And as I have previous films about old people, they allows me to shoot it because they know my work. But when I realized that it was a good place, because I entered with the prejudge that there is something bad happening here, it was like, okay, I am not denouncing anything because it's a good place. So when I'm going to say the truth, and we decided to say it when the film was finished, and they were the first audience that we invite to see the film, and we say, well, we lied to you, but please see the film. It's about the spy. And the funny thing is, like, they never suspect, and I don't know how, because Sergio was really the worst spy in the world. but they love the film, and they feel that the film represents them super well. So that was a big relief for us.
And the film, you just mentioned, it talks actually about the serious topic of loneliness, of aging, of these elderly people in the care homes, and some of them having really tragic backgrounds and stories. There's another film besides, well, La Once, where you also portray elderly people, a short documentary that you co-directed, I'm Not From Here, where you're also in an elderly care home. What attracts you maybe to the rather elderly age group? And did it change anything in your perception as well of aging? You just mentioned Sergio, for example, saw these people and he was really scared of getting senile because he's obviously closer to them age-wise. But did it change something for you as well? How you see elderly people?
Yeah, for me, I think that it changed making these films and this film, that there is no one way to get old. Like in The Mole Agent, you see the film started with old people that are looking for a job, and in the same film, there are people of the same age that one want to get married, another one has dementia, another one it's missing their family, another one it's super good and she goes out. So you can, and Tea Time, it's one of my previous film, it's the same age, but they are completely different situations. So you cannot make one statement about old age, and we usually speak about old people as if they were a similar group, and there is not. So there are so many life and so many different situations at the same age that you cannot make a general statement. So I think that it's like super important about the film and about what I learned also making the film. Yeah.
Maybe some of our friends in the UK know Chile has been, well, in the news also overseas due to the protests and social unrest over the ongoing social injustice since late 2019 were the protests when they started. There will be, well, a new constitution, hopefully. There will be a voting in April, I believe. There is a huge COVID-19 crisis also going on in Chile, violence against women. There are so many topics, not only particularly for Chile, also in Latin America, but talking now about Chile. Within that rather politically heated, I'd say, environment, what do you make of your role as a Chilean artist and filmmaker? What do you think films can contribute to a social discussion?
Yeah, I think that something really important happened for me, like making the distribution of this film, because it's my fourth film. And after the protest, I think that it's the first time that journalists and audience here are starting asking more political questions about the film. Even I think that my previous film, The Grown Ups, it's more politics than this one, but nobody cares about that topics and that time. So I think that society now in general in the world, and mostly in Chile, or I see the case in Chile after the protest, it's trying to understand which society we are and try to understand how we came to that point of the burnout on October of 2019. And films are a way to understand society, and documentaries, of course. And I think that if you see all the Chilean documentaries of the last 10 years, you really can understand what happened in that protest, because the society was there, but we were not seeing ourselves. So documentaries probably are not going to change the world, but help us to put the questions in the society, in our problems, and the questions about the society that we wanted to build and construct. And in the case of The Mole Agent, for me, there are so many topics that you can see of Chilean and Latin America society, like old people that need a job. It's like they want to be active, but at the same time they need to work because they pensionized, they social system doesn't enough to live, so they need to work at their 85. So what is that? That it's one thing. And then the central topic for me, it's like people have been abandoned in retirement homes, and as societies we need retirement homes because old people cannot live anymore with the families, because now we are living in the smallest houses than 20 years ago. So yeah, probably I was raised with my grandmother at home because we live in a big house, but now everybody's living. The demographic change just makes you live in different kind of places now. So we need retirement homes for old people, but now it means that the old people, it's completely disconnected for family and for society and for the cultural world. So how can we make bridge between the family life, the cultural life, and the society with retirement homes that don't imply that old people that goes to live there started to be isolated for their previous life. So that is a challenge now in Chilean society, in Latin American society, and in a lot of European societies too. Like how can they continue living their previous life but living in another place? So yeah, that's a challenge, because we associate old age with bad health, and it's not necessary that. Like 80% of the old people have good health. So in this society that there is a, ¿cómo digo? Como culto a la salud en inglés.
A cult to health.
Yeah,
Cult to health.
Yeah, it's like everything that it's healthy, it's good. And of course that to get old, it's completely the opposite of that. We don't want to see that, we don't want to face that, and we don't want to have it in the day-by-day relationships. So that is something that we have to think and change and look to. Yeah.
I think you're raising a very, very interesting and important point. Demographics change, and they change rapidly in Latin America, because the thing you said, you just mentioned, I'm bicultural, and usually I know in Europe people have the idea of these huge Latin American families that live all together in one house, several generations, and that might still happen for some people, maybe in more remote locations, but in the city life looks very, very different now. So definitely care homes are something that the society needs, and they need to kind of know how to integrate elderly people in society. I'm going back to, well, your films are getting international recognition a lot. We mentioned it already a lot. We're all crossing fingers because The Mole Agent is, well, the official Oscar contender for Chile. What does that mean for you personally, but maybe also as a person who comes from a country that has a very thriving film production, but is still underrepresented in the worldwide film business landscape?
I think that each year it's more well represented, and the Chilean films had a lot of visibility, and there are some Chilean directors that you say their names and everybody knows them, and that it's like a super good territory that Chilean filmmaking has been constructed for many directors. Like I can think in the possibility of make an Oscar campaign because some Chilean directors previous do that work for me also. Like I think it's like a collective job in that sense. But I feel that the representation of Chilean filmmaking outside, it's big, and the good thing of the Chilean filmmakers, it's that there is not a way to tell a story. There are super different voices and super different styles, but the barrier, it's like, of course, that there is not so many space for Latin American directors in the US industry, and at the end, that is the industry that moves the cinematic world. Or how many, of course, we know how many women direct films in the US. So if you put woman Latin America, like, of course that you don't have the same chance to have offered jobs than other directors. So you are always going to make the films from your country, that it's okay, but of course that it's not, we are not moving the industry yet.
And I do have many, many more questions, but my last question for now, before I hand over to the audience, there might be some really interesting questions and comments. Coming to the topic women in film. So Marcela Santibáñez is your producer, Carolina Sirakian, your editor. And these are only two women that I mentioned that are in your very diverse team. How do you feel regarding especially uprising feminist movement in Chile and other Latin American countries? Do you feel any responsibility as a filmmaker and putting word on the emphasis on the word female filmmaker to work and empower more women to work with you in the industry? And maybe can you tell us a little bit more about what is changing in the current landscape of Chilean film business regarding feminism, sexism, support for women?
I think that for me, it's like natural to work with women crew, and because I feel comfortable, and we have like a super good dialogue, good relationships, and we work good together. And there are some things, that you can see in my crew that, like, I don't know if it's work if we were not women working together. Like, we have working like for so many years, like sometimes like really without money, like small things, like making this film, like two of us, like I was pregnant shooting The More Latent, and I edited the film with a baby in the editing room, and that also happened to one of the producers of the films during the process, and we learn in some way how to build our maternity making a film. And it happens because we were all in the same situation, or we already live it, so we understand how to support each other in that world. And I don't know if in any other company we can work like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maite. I hand over to Rebecca. Maybe there are some questions from the audience.
Thanks so much for that. Yeah, we've had a couple of people ask questions. The first is from Ale and Paul, who are in the northeast of England. They said it was a lovely film. They really enjoyed it. And you slightly answered this earlier when you said that really no one had any idea about exactly what you were doing until the end, until after the film was made. So they were wondering whether you still managed to present what the environment inside the home is like, especially with the anniversary party. There's the birthday party. So yeah, do you think the film manages to give a realistic representation of life inside the nursing home?
Sorry, Caroline, can you help me with the question? It's like si en esas fiestas, en el fondo, como si eran reales, como...
Si era real o si tú sientes que has capturado realmente el, ¿cómo se dice? El environment real de lo que has visto, ¿no? Cómo es el elderly care home.
Yeah, for me it's like it's a super well represented environment. Like for me, like the first week that I arrived to that place, and I saw, like, when Sergio arrived, the party of the king was super early, and that really happened like super fast, and it was like, I cannot believe what is happening. And they had the kind of parties all the time, and they do the things that if you put it in a fiction, probably they are so fake that you cannot put it. But in documentary, like, that kind of not verosimil things happen all the time. So yeah, I think that, like, it's a world that for me it's super well represented, and the kind of characters that we reach, like, are the characters, like, there were 50 women in that place, so we select some of them because Sergio has some friends, but I think that the diversity of that place, you can see it in Sergio's friends. Yeah.
Although I read somewhere, correct me if this is wrong, that in the average nursing home, you wouldn't have so many women and not so many men. Normally it's the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, it's a special, like, if you see the statistic, there is more men than women in retirement homes in Chile, but it was a super special place in near Santiago, more like a countryside zone, when people, when a lot of single women that were like 60 years old, when their parents died, they went to live to this place, as Berta, that she said, I have been living here for 25 years. It's like she was really there since she was 60, like super young. When their parents died, she wants to live there, like also Norma. So it was a place that exists for people to go to live there, more like, not like the classical idea of the retirement homes that you go where you're super old. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another question about Sergio. I know Caroline was saying he was just the perfect character to follow. He was so sensitive and so kind and caring with everyone else. He was really fun to watch. So Paul is asking whether Sergio is enjoying the attention that he's receiving from being in the film, and whether there's any chance that he would attend the Oscars.
Yeah, he loved the attention, but at the same time, like, he was not looking for the attention. So it's a special character in that sense, because he didn't arrive to make a film, he arrived to make his job. So, and I think that as we premiere the film in this COVID context, we can make only one, like, small screening with not so many people, and so he really doesn't feel like the audience reception, really. Like, he makes some interviews, but people recognize him on his building, but in the street no, because he's with the mask and he cannot go out. So I think it's like he's not really dimensioned, like, the impact. He sees it in the press, but maybe his life didn't change so much, because if I compare with my character of Tea Times, that I travel with them all the time, and they were like in the street recognized all the time, like, for him it's completely different, because now he's locked down from March, that when we premiered the film. So yeah, if we can travel with him, we are going to do it. But of course that it's super difficult to travel with Sergio in this context, because he's risky population. Yeah.
So hopefully at some point soon, Sergio can experience all the attention that he deserves.
Yeah.
Caroline, I'll hand back to you for the end, and then if anything else pops up, I'll squeeze back in.
Okay, perfect. Maybe, yeah, because it's already late. Just to close my last question, maybe. Maite, how would you like, because we're talking about an international audience and UK audience now who is viewing the film, how would you like them to perceive the film? What would you like them to see in the film?
Yeah, I think that it's a film that it's super, for me, universal, because it invites you to think about how I want to be old and how I want to construct a society with all people. So even if I feel that I'm still far to be in that place. Like my father, it's not so far, or everybody have a connection with the topic from one way to another. So I think that it's a film that invites to that, to reflect about like how much time passed without call your grandparents or your parents, like how disconnected are you from your family in general. So yeah, it's an invitation, yeah, to think.
Do you just, the follow-up questions keep coming and popping up to my head, I'm sorry. But do you, because you just mentioned Sergio, and obviously you're in touch with him now because you're in promotion of the film and you have to, well, I'm not sure if he's doing interviews as well, but do you, or did you stay in touch with the other characters as well? For example, the beautiful group in La Once, the elderly women.
Yeah, of course, like with the characters of Tea Time, like I have tea with them like each 2 months. Like all the characters of the previous film are part of my life, and Sergio also. So like you are constructed new relationships and you have new friends for your life, like all the time. Yeah.
That is amazing, and actually another documentary for you, La Once Part 2, with you in the middle of these.
Yeah, completely.
I think we can close it, Rebecca. If there are not more,
one more
question, okay,
and then we'll say good night. This is whether you, Maite, got a response from any of the family members who were sort of involved in the film, and the fact that they hadn't visited their relatives in the home, and whether that sort of woke them up to what was happening and they might have reacted after seeing the film.
I think that, I don't know if they reacted for the film. I think that there was a lot of people reacted because of the COVID. Like the owner of the retirement home told me, like, yeah, there was a pandemic. We are speaking about the pandemic of the loneliness that was already in that place, because we see a lot of funerals without family members and a lot of people isolated. So when they have to close the doors because of the COVID, because you cannot visit all people in residence, in retirement homes, like the life for that people don't change, because they were living already isolated and already without visitors. So that lockdown make the visibility from the ones that were outside, that a lot of family members start calling and start try to visiting in a moment that you cannot, because you, for the forbidden, you were conscious that you have not been going. So in that sense, the COVID put a change that, of course, that came with the film. So a lot of people started to appear, but I think it was more the lockdown. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Well, we've had lots of people comment saying that they loved the film, and others like Tea Time. So thank you for joining us and for speaking more about The Mole Agent and other films.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maite. And I'll just say again that anyone who hasn't seen The Mole Agent can do so via Dogworth's Watch at Home. So it's just themoleagent.co.uk to watch the film there. And with that, we'll say good night. Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Maite. Thank you, Dogworth, Flower, Lab, and Cine Latino.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Take care.